Okay, now that we know the basics of bolt dimensions, thread pitch, and the body diameter, we can go ahead and try to identify our first bolt. The first thing you want to look at when looking at a bolt is the head. On the head of this bolt right here, there are 3 dashes. If you see dashes on the head of a bolt, it automatically means that it's a standard size bolt. The number of dashes is always 2 less than the grade. So we have 1, 2, 3. So that means that this is a grade 5 standard size bolt. Okay, great. So now we know it's a standard size bolt. Let's go ahead and measure the diameter of the body right here. What we're going to do is we're going to use a scale first. I'm going to put it on the decimal side. Okay, so we've lined our bolt up on this decimal side of the scale, and I'm going to be referencing the bottom part of the scale, which is incremented in 20 thousandths of an inch. And just by giving this a quick look, that looks like the body is about 240 thousandths or so in diameter. Now again, as demonstrated by the Nerf bullet earlier, the scale is sometimes not the best way to know all the information. However, for what we're doing here, measuring bolt diameters, it'll get you in the ballpark and it'll get you to where you want to go, and it'll definitely tell you the right bolt that you're looking for. But just for it, let's go ahead and measure with the calipers. What we're getting is 245 thousandths of an inch. Now we know that it is a 245 thousandths diameter bolt. We reference our chart. We see if we can find 245 thousandths listed between a minimum and maximum value on our chart, and it looks like that we do. And look at that, it is a 1/4 inch bolt. Now this right here, circle with a line through it, is how you write diameter. You may see that in some technical publications and in some specifications from the manufacturer as well. So now if we look at our chart, a 1/4 inch bolt has a coarse thread of 20 and a fine thread of 28. So let's go ahead and take our thread pitch guide here, and we're going to go ahead and start with the coarse thread, number 20 right here. And we're going to put it on these threads and see what it looks like. See how those teeth fit right into those threads of that bolt? That is a perfect fit. Now I'll show you what a 28 threads per inch looks like on this bolt, which would be the fine classification. We'll try to line up these teeth. And obviously the teeth do not fall into the threads, which means that this is not a fine pitched bolt. This is a coarse threaded bolt, so it'll give us a 1/4 20 grade 5 bolt. And if you reference your chart, you can get a general torque specification. They'll always vary, but if you aren't given a specification, you can use this chart to kind of get you in the right ballpark, and that would be 7 feet-pound. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of our metric bolts now. Okay, again, we have a bolt here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the head. On this bolt right here, you can see an 8.8 on the head right there. 8.8 refers to the metric system, so this is a grade 8.8 metric bolt. Just as a standard bolt, we can go ahead and measure the diameter of the body right here, and we will use a scale again just to show you how you do this. So you can kind of put it up like here. I know it's a little hard to see on the camera, but if you had this scale in your hand, you can definitely see that it's right around 300 thousandths of an inch. Again, let's go ahead and use the caliper. So we'll take the caliper, we'll measure across the body diameter right here, and that gives us 310 thousandths of an inch. So you see how the 3 is right there. If that needle on the dial caliper were to be right here at that 0, that would be 300 thousandths of an inch. And here we're at plus 10 thousandths, so we're at 310 thousandths of an inch. Now we know it's a metric bolt, so let's convert the standard decimal into a metric unit. To do that, all you're going to do is you're going to take your standard value, which in this case is 0.310, times that by 25.4, and you'll have a metric value. That metric value in this case turns out to be 7.87 millimeters. If we reference our chart, we'll notice that the M8 bolt has a minimum and a maximum value of 7.78 millimeters to 8 millimeters. The bolt diameter falls at 7.87, so it is clearly within those specifications. So now we know that it's an M8 grade 8.8 bolt. By looking at our chart, we can see that the coarse threads are a 1.25 pitch, and the fine threads are a 1 millimeter pitch. Let's go ahead and use the thread pitch gauge. Now I'm going to start with a 1. I'm going to show you what that looks like on these threads. Again, notice how those teeth don't fall in there. So obviously this is not a fine pitched metric bolt. Let's go ahead and switch to our 1.25 coarse threaded bolt. That's what we're looking for right there. See how those teeth fall right into that? This is definitely a grade 8.8 M8 by 1.25 bolt. The last thing I want to talk about is something rather common that you can run into out in the field. There are some standard and metric bolt sizes that are extremely similar, and the diameters of each one actually fall within the tolerances for either or. So you could have a metric bolt that measures within specifications of a standard bolt, and you can have a standard body diameter that falls within the tolerance for a metric bolt. Well, I just look at the head, right? And I tell if there's dashes or if there's a number on there. That'll tell me if it's a metric or standard. Well, that would be nice. However, in our area, in our field, how often are you going to be taking a bolt out of a car where you can actually read the head of it? Corrosion, rust, you're not going to be able to tell just by looking at the head if it's standard or if it's metric. So now where does that leave you? Well, let me show you. So, just for the sake of it, this is a grade 8 bolt. See how there's 6 dashes? So this is obviously a standard size bolt. However, let's just pretend we can't see that, and we go ahead and measure the body of this. That measures roughly at 306 thousandths of an inch. So 306 thousandths of an inch, we take our SAE value times 25.4. That gives us a value of 7.78 millimeters. Well, hold on. I thought that the M8 value was 7.78 to 8 millimeters. It is, and so is the 5/16 bolt in the standard size, which has a minimum value of 306 thousandths and a max value of so if the bolt that we measured falls between the standard and the metric, how do we figure this out? Well, you would use a thread pitch gauge. On our reference chart for a 5/16, it gives us a threads per inch of either 18 or 24. If we take the 18 and we put it on this bolt, it fits into those threads perfect. The 24 is too fine to match this coarse thread. Now if you were to take the thread pitch values from the metric chart for the bolt diameter that we have here, you would see that an M8 coarse thread is 1.25 and a fine thread is 1 millimeter. If we take this coarse 1.25 millimeter thread and we put it onto this bolt, we'll see that the teeth do not line up with the threads. This automatically will tell you that this is not an M8 bolt, but rather a standard 5/16. This is a great way to know if you have a standard or a metric bolt if there are no head identifications present. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you got something out of it. See you next time. Bye-bye.